Right now, on the big island of Hawaii, scientists are watching the ground itself breathe in and out, and they are telling you that the next 72 hours matter more than almost any window in the last 2 years. Deep beneath Halemaʻumaʻu crater, at the summit of Kīlauea, one of the most closely watched volcanoes on the planet, the Earth has been swelling with molten rock, and the instruments planted across that crater floor are recording a pattern that has, time and again, come right before fire breaks the surface. This is not a distant rumor from a research paper nobody reads. This is happening this week, and the volcano has already rehearsed this exact sequence 53 separate times since it woke up in December of 2024. Kīlauea does not erupt. Like the volcanoes you picture in disaster movies, with a single catastrophic blast that ends everything in an instant. Instead, it breathes in long, deliberate cycles, and understanding that rhythm is exactly why scientists are so confident right now that something is coming, and coming soon. Since this eruption sequence began, Kīlauea has settled into an almost hypnotic pattern. The summit inflates as magma pushes up from deep reservoirs, pressure builds beneath Halemaʻumaʻu, and then, when the pressure finds its release, lava fountains erupt from vents on the crater floor, sometimes soaring hundreds of feet into the night sky before the episode ends and the mountain goes quiet again. Then it waits, sometimes for a few days, sometimes for more than 3 weeks. And then it starts all over again. 50. 3 of these episodes have played out since the eruption began, an average of roughly 1 every 11 days, though the spacing has varied wildly depending on how fast magma refills the system underground. The most recent one, episode 53, began on August 12th and lasted just under 10 hours, sending a fountain of lava from the north vent, soaring close to 500 T into the air, with an ash and gas plume that climbed 18,000 feet above sea level, visible for miles across the island. And then, just as it has done more than 50 times before, the mountain fell silent again, and the waiting game began once more. But this time, the instruments are telling a very specific story. According to the United States Geological Survey and the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, ground deformation sensors at the summit have detected renewed inflation over the past several days, and crucially, that inflation has been accelerating, not slowing down. When scientists see the rate of ground swelling pick up speed rather than plateau, that has historically been one of the clearest signals that magma is approaching the surface and that a new fountaining episode is close. Based on this accelerating trend, the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory has issued a forecast window stating that the onset of the next eruptive episode is likely to fall between August 25th and August 28th, with Tuesday and Wednesday flagged as the most probable days if the current rate of inflation continues. That is not a vague, someday kind of prediction. That is a specific data-driven window built from tiltmeters, GPS, stations, and years of pattern recognition on a volcano that has essentially given scientists a playbook of its own behavior. This is exactly why the next 72 hours matter so much. If the pattern holds, and Kīlauea has been remarkably consistent about following its own script, residents, park visitors, and scientists around the world could be watching molten rock breach the surface of Halemaʻumaʻu within days, possibly even within hours of certain forecasted windows. And once that happens, based on what the last several episodes look like, the eruption itself could be fast, violent, and visually staggering, then over again within less than half a day. It is worth pausing here to understand just how strange and specific this volcanic behavior actually is. Kīlauea's current eruption is confined almost entirely within Halemaʻumaʻu crater, an area that has been closed off to the public since 2007 due to the extreme hazards around the crater rim, including wall instability, ground cracking, and rockfalls that can be triggered by nearby earthquakes. That means that even during an active fountaining episode, the lava is not threatening nearby towns or major roads the way past Kīlauea eruptions have in previous decades. Instead, this eruption has become something closer to nature's own fireworks show, contained within a caldera that has been reshaping itself since a massive collapse back in 2018 dramatically altered the crater's structure. Since the current eruption sequence began in December 2024, roughly 6 million cubic yards of lava has poured out, during recent episodes alone, gradually rebuilding and covering large sections of the crater floor that had once been emptied out entirely. Visitors who make the roughly half-mile walk from the parking area to Keanakakoi overlook inside Hawaii Volcanoes National Park have been treated to views of fountains reaching hundreds of feet into the sky, glowing against the night in a display that photographers and scientists alike describe as one of the most accessible, safely viewable volcanic eruptions anywhere on Earth right now. But accessible does not mean risk-free, and that is part of why this particular window has so many people paying close attention. Local officials, including Hawaii County Civil Defense, remain in constant contact with the observatory, ready to adjust park access and safety zones the moment activity ramps up. Ash and volcanic gas, known as VOG, can still drift across parts of the island depending on wind direction, affecting air quality far beyond the crater rim itself. And anyone with respiratory sensitivities is advised to monitor conditions closely if an episode begins. There is also the simple, humbling reality that predicting exactly when a volcano will erupt, even one as well studied and instrumented as Kīlauea, still involves real uncertainty. The observatory has been careful, again and again, to describe these forecasts as windows, not guarantees, because underground magma systems do not always behave exactly the way their historical patterns suggest they will. Deflation trends have occasionally pushed back forecasted eruption windows before, delaying episodes by days or even weeks beyond initial predictions. So while the data strongly points towards something happening in the very near future, scientists are also quick to remind the public that Kīlauea, more than most volcanoes on Earth, has a habit of keeping its own schedule. Still, the signs lining up right now are hard to ignore. Accelerating inflation, a tightly clustered forecast window, a volcano with a documented repeating history of doing almost exactly this, 53 times over. If you are watching live camera feeds from the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory this week, or if you happen to be anywhere near the Big Island, the next several days represent one of the highest probability windows for witnessing an actual eruption episode that this entire 2-year sequence has produced. And if it follows the pattern of episode 52 and episode 53 before it, the show, when it comes, will likely be fast and intense. A fountain of lava rising hundreds of feet from the north. Vent, an ash plume climbing miles into the sky, and then, in a matter of hours, silence again as Kīlauea resets itself for whatever comes next. This is the strange rhythm of one of the most active and most watched volcanoes in the world, a mountain that inflates, erupts, and quiets down in a loop that has repeated itself more than 50 times, and yet somehow still manages to captivate scientists and spectators every single time. The countdown begins again, so keep an eye on the coming days, because if the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory's forecast holds true, the mountain may be about to put on its 54th performance right on schedule. If you found this breakdown fascinating, do not forget to like and subscribe so you never miss the next update the moment new activity is detected. We will be tracking this closely, and the second Kīlauea shows real signs of fountaining again. You will be among the first to know exactly what is happening and why it matters. Until then, the mountain waits. The instruments keep recording every subtle shift underground, and somewhere beneath Halemaʻumaʻu crater, the pressure keeps building toward whatever comes next. To really appreciate why this specific volcano gets this much attention from scientists worldwide, it helps to look back at what Kīlauea has already been through in just the last decade. Back in 2018, Kīlauea produced one of the most destructive eruptions in its recorded history, when lava poured out of the volcano's lower flank for months, destroying entire neighborhoods and dramatically draining the summit's magma system. That event caused the floor of Halemaʻumaʻu crater to collapse downward in a series of massive, staggered drops, permanently reshaping the summit into something far deeper and more dramatic than it had been before. For years afterward, the crater sat mostly quiet, slowly filling with a lake of water at its lowest point, until magma pressure began returning to the system. Between December of 2020 and September of 2024, Kīlauea went through 7 separate eruptions, 5 of them confined to the summit inside Halemaʻumaʻu, and together those events refilled the crater with well over 1,000 feet of fresh lava, essentially rebuilding, piece by piece, what the 2018 collapse had taken away. Then, in December 2024, the current sequence began, and it has been running almost continuously since, episode after episode, each one adding another layer to that slowly rebuilding crater floor. What makes this current stretch so remarkable to volcanologists is not just its length, but its consistency. Most fountaining episodes last less than a single day, some barely a few hours, yet the pattern of inflate, erupt, pause, and inflate again has held firm across more than 50 repetitions. That kind of predictability is genuinely rare in volcanology, and it is part of why Kīlauea has become something of a natural laboratory, drawing researchers who want to understand exactly how a shallow magma system behaves when it is recharged again and again over a period of years, rather than erupting once and going fully dormant. Every single episode adds another data point, refining the models that scientists now use to issue forecasts like the one currently pointing toward this week. Understanding the mechanics helps explain why the observatory can speak with this much confidence about a 72-hour window. Tiltmeters buried around the summit measure microscopic changes in the slope. If the ground changes so small they would be completely invisible to a person standing there, yet they reveal exactly how much the crater floor is rising as magma pushes upward from below. When that tilt rate speeds up rather than holding steady, it typically means the pressure driving magma toward the surface is increasing. And in nearly every one of the previous 53 episodes, a similar acceleration showed up in the days, immediately before fountaining began. That is the exact signature scientists say they are watching unfold again right now, which is precisely why the forecast window narrowed down to a specific handful of days rather than a vague, open-ended time frame. For anyone who has never seen a Kīlauea fountaining episode unfold, it is worth understanding just how dramatic these events actually look, even though they take place entirely within a closed-off, restricted area. When a new episode begins, it typically starts with lava quietly overflowing from one or more vents, gradually building in intensity before transitioning into full fountaining, sometimes throwing molten rock several hundred feet straight into the night sky. The glow can be seen from public overlooks miles away, and the accompanying plume of ash, gas, and volcanic glass particles known as Pele's hair can drift for miles depending on wind direction, occasionally reaching areas well outside the immediate summit region. Past episodes have sent plumes climbing 3 or even 4 miles above sea level, visible on satellite imagery and occasionally affecting air travel advisories in the surrounding region. This is part of why local authorities take these forecast windows seriously, even though the eruption itself remains contained within the crater. It is not just about the spectacle, it is about air quality, visibility for aircraft, and ensuring that anyone hiking within the national park understands exactly where the safe viewing boundaries are before an episode begins. As the current window approaches, park rangers and civil defense officials are once again preparing to monitor conditions in real time, ready to adjust. Acts as points the moment activity increases. For residents across the island, this kind of forecast has become almost a familiar rhythm at this point, a reminder that they share their home with one of the most active volcanic systems on the entire planet. For scientists, though, every single episode remains valuable, another chance to refine models, test instruments, and better understand a volcanic system that continues to evolve even after 53 rounds of eruption. And for everyone else watching from a screen, whether they are following live camera feeds or simply keeping an eye on the news, this coming window represents one more chance to witness. In close to real time, the raw geological forces that have shaped the Hawaiian Islands for millions of years